Scott Morrison's illiberal position on vaccine passports is just shocking to me. I am, like so many of you, wanting Morrison to succeed and do well for the sake of the nation. But after he revealed in this video what his values really are, we have to question his ability and willingness to defend Menzian liberal values. It appears they've been tossed out the window. He tries to sound liberal by championing the rights of pubs, cafes, restaurants and any business to discriminate against people who are unvaccinated.
As you know, any venue, any pub, any cafe, any restaurant, any shop has every right under Australia's property laws to be able to deny entry to people who are unvaccinated.
Now, I'd love to see him so enthusiastically endorse the property rights of bakers, florists and photographers forced by kangaroo courts to celebrate homosexuality with their businesses despite their Christian convictions. But you won't, because that won't help his career. By selectively claiming property rights always trump other rights, and that it's somehow valid to eject unvaccinated people as if they're an unacceptable risk to public health, Scott Morrison cynically perpetuates the irrational fear of a modified flu virus which nearly everyone under 70 will easily survive without a vaccination. This is especially true if diagnosed cases are treated early or even prevented with the already approved off-patent pharmaceuticals we have decades of global safety data for. Australian governments are far less interested in encouraging people to discuss these with their GP than vaccines with novel technology and no long-term safety data. Now, the journalist in this video interviewing the Prime Minister observes that what he's describing to enable businesses to discriminate is a vaccine passport. Here's how Scotty from marketing reacts to that accurate description, looking uncomfortably at the floor and changing the topic.
Like a vaccine passport.
Well, they have that right to be able to deny that. And so the QR code reader can be used as a way of so it's easy for people. You just go in like you normally do right now, and it will show whether you're vaccinated or not.
Now, when you raise your concerns about vaccine passports with your friendly local Liberal MP, and I encourage you to, they will probably pass the buck and say to you that they have suddenly discovered, for the first time since Federation, that they are champions of state rights and that the Constitution affords states the powers for restrictions and limitations on movement through public health orders. But even if that's true, you just heard the Prime Minister warmly enthuse that very anti-Liberal policy. He could lead the criticism of such big gov authoritarian overreach, but he hasn't, and won't, because he's the ringleader of this circus. I would hope that every Australian, vaccinated or not, would name, shame and boycott any business exercising their right to unfair discrimination, just as we would if they arrogantly demonstrated any other professional bigotry. Of course, we'll take our business elsewhere, not that Morrison's deplorables will have a choice. I'd really like to see our Liberal Prime Minister, Premiers and various federal and state Liberal MPs just as enthusiastically endorse the rights to medical privacy and bodily autonomy of all Australians, instead of happily facilitating access to federally controlled vaccination records. Instead, Prime Minister Scott Morrison is literally conspiring to provide material support to the states and private organisations, including churches, to create an Australian apartheid, immorally segregating and denying basic human rights to people who've decided to not get the vaccine. Informed consent is meant to be an inviolable ethical requirement of any medical procedure. Yet by collaborating with states and industry to discriminate against people withholding their informed consent, Scott Morrison and the Premiers are participating in coercion and bullying of people to trample God-given rights to medical autonomy as well as privacy. In Scott Morrison's big gov dystopian fantasy, people are incapable of making right decisions in consultation with their GP, and they need the government's help to inject what they're told.
Now, for premises that are allowing unvaccinated people in, it also helps us, because when they log in and we know they are unvaccinated, they're the first people we're going to call for their safety. So these QR code readers that tell people whether you're vaccinated or not are actually helping those who are unvaccinated as well, where they're allowed to go to places.
And there's the real problem any real supporter of liberal values should be solely focused on. Quote, where the unvaccinated are allowed to go, end quote. The science is debatable. The Constitution is debatable. But liberal values are guiding lights not meant to be disposable or dismissible when convenient. I don't care if we're talking about smallpox with a case fatality rate of 30% instead of the Wuhan flu, which 99.9997% of Australians under 70 will survive if caught. Even if the worst case discredited models of the hyperventilating Imperial College were accurate, liberal values are the non-negotiable guiding lights for good public policy. You wouldn't have to tell people to wash their hands and stay home if we were dealing with a serious risk. They'd do it voluntarily. With a small or great risk, individuals can manage their own risk. This is gospel truth to any serious conservative, libertarian, or classical liberal, but not to the waxing authoritarian Scott Morrison government. He takes it as a given, unremarkable and inoffensive that any healthy, innocent Australian should be detained at the border by their own army and placed under hotel arrest in solitary confinement for weeks, or that they might be allowed free movement around even local businesses or to leave the country without a vaccine passport.
You want to see these sort of certificates, though, effectively?
Well, there is.
It's their passports.
Well, that's not how I refer to them. What I refer to them is when people have certificates of vaccination. I have one. We all have them. Of course, we have them for many other things as well. And you're going to need them for international travel as well.
I honestly don't know what's left in this nation for radical leftist authoritarians to wreck that state and federal liberal governments haven't already vandalised. This spectre of Australian apartheid can all go away if we just do as we're told and inject what we're told, or if the federal Liberal government protects the privacy of vaccination records and refuses to integrate them with check-in apps, but instead strongly condemns any state employer or organisation attempting to mandate or otherwise coerce private medical decisions. I suggest to you this might be an essential condition for supporting any MP or Senator at the upcoming federal election. And you might like to politely let them know by phone this is not just a state issue they can pass the buck on.